The United Nations defines diversity as difference. People are the same and different. Human diversity includes country of origin, family and ethnic background, age, culture, professional experience and training, religious and personal beliefs, personality, race, and gender. Today, I want to focus on diversity and the need for it, particularly in the pressing need for gender equity in leadership for SDG 6.2 from an intersectionality perspective. We need a more diverse labor force to establish a more inclusive and equitable development sector experience for all WASH practitioners. By highlighting the scale of issues facing female WASH leaders in the sector, we can better understand their challenges and galvanize action for progressive systemic change while examining other robust, potential, and scalable solutions. So, why should we do this? In 2020, a McKinsey report indicated that companies in the top quartile in the gender diversity on executive teams were 25% more likely to experience above average profitability than peer companies in the fourth quartile. The findings were even more compelling for ethnic and cultural diversity, showing that companies in the top 25% outperform those in the bottom quarter by 36% in terms of profitability. Similarly, looking into the analysis of the employment data from participating organizations in the Flash LLC study, it is clear that diversity, equity, and inclusion in the global sector have not been the subject of extensive investigation or scrutiny. This study exposed that white males from the high-income countries comprised over a third of all leadership positions. With regards to race, 2/3 of the sanitation leaders were found to be white, with the white leaders 8.7 times more likely to hold multiple positions across different organizations than the BIPOC people. 88 out of the 100 organizations were headquartered in the high-income countries, and Western institutions dominated education data. BIPOC women were the least represented group. BIPOC WASH female leaders are missing out on opportunities in the development sector that holds the promise of advancement of the SDG 6.2 targets and the rising economic security that comes along with it. There are consequences of not having women in WASH leadership. The financial consequences are significant. Elaborating this further with an example from my country, Kenya, the gap between available financial resources for the sector and the investments requirements remains huge. And about 90% of this funding comes from the development partners in the north. In a report shared in 2017 by Global Water Leaders, the WASH sector is losing $323 billion in a year on bad water and sanitation programs and projects. So the cost of coping with inadequate WASH access is rising faster than the utility investments in a sector with already dwindling funds. By and large, the extent of WASH failures, especially in the South, are attributed to the lack of women in the sector leadership. Research shows that when women are well represented at the top, organizations are 50% more likely to outperform their peers. Beyond that, compared to senior level men, senior level women have a vast and meaningful impact on an organization's culture. They champion diversity, equity, and inclusion issues more. Unfortunately, given the high male dominance in the WASH sector, they are also usually the onlys, the only one in the room, or the only one in the workplace. That comes with its own challenges. More sharper criticism to affirm their competence, more pressure to feel the need to working longer hours, and more experience to microaggressions. Here are some examples of what I mean. Many ambitious women want to advance into leadership positions. very few have the support to assist them into getting those positions. Though many employees perceive themselves as supporters to BIPOC women, they do not take enough action, such as publicly advocating for racial or gender equality, publicly confronting discrimination, and publicly mentoring and sponsoring them. Women have the capacity to lead in the sector. There exists geographic mismatches between the female WASH leaders in the sector and opportunities, so they remain underrepresented and paid less. Though many organizations are hiring more women to entry-level positions, their numbers dwindle at management level, particularly for BIPOC women. A McKinsey report demonstrates this by exposing that women encounter the broken rung on the ladder to success and a revolving door in entry-level jobs, hindering their career advancement. This obviously has a long-term impact on the talent pipeline. Eventually, there are fewer women to hire, fewer women to promote to senior managers, and overall, fewer women in the sector. Women can never catch up with this status quo. Women, it is time for us to take up power. The central question of gender equality is a question of power. We continue to live in a male-dominated world with a male-dominated culture. Power is not given. Power is taken. We have to push back against the resistance to change, as advised by Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. Further, Kato Kelelitse, a female climate change advocate from Botswana, challenges, woman, take up space in your field of expertise and be loud about it. Your name should be the first to pop up in anyone is looking for someone in your field. Humility is costing us money. And we've had the call. Having women in WASH leadership is no longer just talk, it's success. Today, there are many exemplary women who we can draw inspiration and strength from. The 2020 Global Intelligence Report lists Liv Garfield as the most powerful woman in the water sector and indicates her impact in the sector as well. I am particularly drawn to the African women in the report, highlighting the Minister for Water and Sanitation, Honorable Cicely Kariuki from my country, Kenya, Lindiwe Sisulu and Anne Desiree Auloto from South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire, respectively, holding similar dockets in the national governments. I also add those that personally inspire me, those keen on young and BIPOC women in the WASH sector, because these are the future of the sector. My colleagues, Portia Parsley of USAID, Maret Cohen of Women for Water Partnership, Katarina de Albuquerque of Sanitation Water for All, Katarina Fonseca of IRC, and Dr. Mira Mehta. You are in the right side of history. The work we are doing in advancing the human right to water and sanitation is frankly incredible. Undoubtedly, WASH organizations that have embraced diversification in terms of gender and race are positioned to meaningfully outperform their more homogeneous counterparts. Consequently, diversity, equity, and inclusion of women at the WASH workplace, especially of BIPOC women, has become an increasing priority for the development sector. Trends for both BIPOC leadership and female representation in the sanitation sector and the promotion have shown improvement. Specifically, after announcement of SDG 10, several WASH organizations have invested heavily on inclusion activities, both in terms of beneficiary activities and increasing female leadership and targets. However, placing a higher value on diversity and implementing targeted initiatives have not closed the representation gaps for women leaders in WASH, and especially BIPOC women, with most outcomes remaining elusive despite scaling up of initiatives. Overall, many organizations are stepping up, but many are not addressing the underlying causes. So how do we address these underlying causes? Effective policies are informed best by data. We cannot change what we do not measure, and we cannot measure what we do not know. Therefore, firstly, and borrowing from President Biden's approach when he recently issued an executive order mandating that all government agencies in his country review policies to identify barriers to racial inequity and report this within 200 days, I would guide that all WASH organizations collect data to analyze their current state of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thereafter, inquire what actions can influence overall representation in the sector. And this includes representation at each level of the pipeline, inclusion and advancement of women from beneficiary level all the way to the headquarters. There needs to be an inclusive environment where women feel supported by peers and leaders. There needs to be an equitable access to opportunity, and overall there needs to be a vision for an organization's role in advancing opportunity for female WASH leaders, and mainly the BIPOC women across the sector. Co-creation will be key in strategically prioritizing interventions addressing necessary changes at the organization, leader, and peer levels. After all, progress cannot be made in silos. Collaborative efforts with external stakeholders to galvanize collective action will therefore be helpful. This will build trust across the organization, empowering and equipping management to not only develop but advance female leaders, and mainly those of BIPOC could follow. Reinforce and scale what works and reimagine what doesn't. Without diverse leadership, the sector will continue to experience failure, inefficient use of dwindling resources, and overall low sanitation coverage rates, with already 2 billion people lacking sanitation access. These issues must be urgently addressed to effectively meet SDG 6.2 targets. Thank you.